Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, I am bringing you my friend, Danielle. She is the owner of Bridge Consulting and Design, a social media marketing company that serves local small businesses through social media management and coaching small businesses to take more ownership of their social media efforts. Danielle, I'm so happy you're here.
Yes, I am too. Thank you so much.
Yes. So let's start out. Just tell us a little bit about you and what you do and all that good stuff.
Okay, so currently, let me start with the family stuff because I always start with like my values first. So I'm a mom of two, been happily married for 5 years, but we've been together for 10. So I think that's an accomplishment in my generation. Very proud of that. We live in Kansas, and if you're wondering, yes, there's absolutely many yellow brick roads here. I have had a Toto dog growing up. She was white and her name was Trixie instead of Toto, but we totally got her because of the Wizard of Oz. I do use Wizard of Oz like little liners for my marketing, and it actually works because I'll get it either way. But as Rachel said, I am a social media manager. I started my company back in 2018. I'll kind of probably get into how that all came about, but I love local small businesses. My family, about 50% of my family growing up was some type of traditional business owner. So I saw the benefits of that, the struggles, and yeah, so I love to serve that community specifically and just helping them to stand out. And like you said in my intro, like taking more ownership of their social media management. So it's a little bit about me. I'm sure we'll get into more though.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell us about your entrepreneurial journey and what that's looked like?
So I actually, like growing up, I never thought I wanted to be a business owner at all. Probably like you, because this is one of the reasons that I was attracted to you was I thought I was going to be a professional volleyball player.
I love
Yes,
it.
I know. I also thought that if volleyball didn't work out, that I was going to be Erin Andrews. So I actually studied sports broadcasting for 1 year, but I went to college on a volleyball scholarship and within my first year after my playing season, so like in the off season, we were playing the University of Colorado, and I blew literally every ligament in my knee. I tore both my meniscus, and I was done. Like it was, I couldn't recover. So that was, gosh, I was 18. So I moved home. Like everything up into that point in my life, I worked for volleyball. Like that was my everything, And so all of
So
a sudden,
similar. Yeah, we're so
yeah,
similar.
it's like all of a sudden I was like, what do I do?
Yep.
And for me, like I was a first generation with my parents. I mean, like neither one of my parents graduated high school, and so they didn't go to college. My brother didn't go to college, and he's older than me. Both of my younger sister went to high school, like she graduated high school, but like school just was not our family's thing. So I didn't have a lot of pressure to go finish my degree. So I just started working, and at 19 years old, I worked full time, had so many odds and ends jobs. Like it's silly. I was a baggage claim person on the tarmac throwing bags for American Airlines. Yes, I
Oh, you
was
get
that
like,
South.
do you get cheap flights?
Yeah, all I had to pay for was the taxes, which back in 2007, that was nothing. Like,
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so
yeah,
worth it.
$12 to go to Phoenix was pretty great. But so just all sorts of odds and ends jobs. Like I had no direction. I still coached volleyball, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I found myself working for a lot of small businesses though in Wichita, where I'm originally from. And I loved the family dynamic of that, and kind of getting to see behind the scenes. And then 2011, my husband and I moved to Kansas City, which is 3 hours north, looking for a new opportunity. Kind of got stuck in like the same, like, I'm not moving on with my life. And that's when a friend of mine actually introduced me to one of my mentors that I have today. They're very successful entrepreneurs. They were able to replace their full-time incomes when they were 25 and 28. So I pursued their mentorship, and someone that they knew, actually, it's all about who you know, right? I feel like
Yep.
that is so key. And finding somebody who has something in life or some results in life that you want, and you can learn from them.
Your net worth is directly correlated to your network.
Yes, exactly. And like you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And Josh and I, we recognized that pretty early. So that was 2013. So we started getting mentorship from this amazing couple. And then in 2014, no degree, nothing. A friend of mine says, "Hey, I think you'd be really good for this marketing position over at this agency. I can at least get you an interview and then it's up to you." So this company that I interviewed for required a 4-year degree and sales experience, and I had none. But I got the job, and
Nice.
I was told, I was interviewing for a digital marketing specialist. Rachel, get this. I actually you know how like you start a job and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're actually going to do this." I was a phone book advertising sales chick. So I would call up little small businesses and try to sell them in 2014. Like this was still a thing, like try to sell them full page ads in the phone book.
Oh,
Like
that's so funny.
I know, but what I found out was I was supposed to like build relationships with them and then through that relationship transition them into more online stuff because Facebook business pages were starting to come out in like 2012 to 2013. So it was all foundational because I learned how to establish relationships. And so I worked for that agency for 3.5 years, did really well, but they went through some restructuring and they changed their focus and the customers' needs, you know, like your mom and pop shop plumbers and roofers and restaurants, their needs are so different, but they became less on the priority list for the company that I worked for. And I started to see that prices were going up, the quality was going down, and I'm the face of the company to my clients. And I just felt like this, I don't know, like this inner turmoil of like, this is not good. Like, I felt like I was lying to my clients.
Oh.
And Rachel, there was one moment where I remember a client of mine, they were 2 months into their program and it was like a website and a social media package and some SEO. And I think they were paying $2,000 a month and I think they were a local plumber, which is why I always say this. And the husband, who was the owner and he was the plumber tech, he passed away. And they were in a 12-month contract. And the company that I worked for said they have to live out their 12-month contract. Well, the wife calls and she's like, "We're closing the business. Like, we can't do this anymore." And the company I worked for would not let them out of their contract because she couldn't produce death certificate, all this stuff, right? And it was like, I immediately was like, I'm done. I'm so done. And I had seen enough of that to know like, this is just how it is, you know, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to serve people like that. But I remember thinking like, small businesses need somebody to help them understand what decisions to make. Like that's the part of my role that I enjoyed. But for me, like I'm not anti-agency because I think that's important for some people, but I think that I started to recognize someone needs to let these small business owners know like there are options.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started getting this idea of like, well, maybe I can just start doing this on my own. And I'm not trying to say this because like you're one of my coaches, but one of my bosses at the second job after that first one, she introduced me to your podcast. And because I told her, I said, I think I'm supposed to do something on my own. And I just don't know what that looks like. And she goes, "You should check out this podcast. She's making an impact." That was in the summer. I think it was right when you started your podcast, maybe the summer of 2018.
Shut up. That was like right after I started it.
Yep.
Wow.
And so, yep. And I just started listening to it, you know, and July 2018, I started Bridge Consulting and Design. And I started with freelancing out website designs because that's what I sold at the old company. And I knew how to do that. And I was like, why is someone paying $6,000 for a website that's a template? I can do that for much cheaper and they can own this. And so, but quickly it turned into social media needs and started having more conversations. And I'll speed this part of the journey up. Within 3 months of starting the company, I replaced my full-time income. So I went full-time business owner. I was pregnant during that time. I was actually supposed to be on like bed rest. This was with Selah, my littlest. And it was all a God thing to me because like I needed to rest and the job I was in was high stress. And then everything worked out, like replaced that full-time income within 3 months. Social media management was my thing. And I was managing all of my clients' like content needs and creating systems for that. By month 10, I hit my first 5-figure month, which was like, oh, but Rachel, that's when I started. At that month that I hit it was 10,500 some dollars of revenue. That's when I said, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this, because I was doing all of the work.
Uh-huh.
So that was April of 2019. And then I think I signed up for Pin with Purpose that summer. And then it's like, because I was like, I have to duplicate myself. How do I duplicate myself? That's part of that entrepreneurial journey that I think people come to. Like, how do I scale this beyond myself?
Yep.
And I did not want employees. I was not ready to hand anything off to anybody. And I was like, I've got to figure out a way to clone me. So I started looking into, okay, how can I teach this, like what's in my mind, to other business owners? How can I, instead of doing it for them, give them the ability to do it themselves? And that's when I went on and I started thinking about creating my course. And now I'm 6 months into having an online course, and I'm getting ready for my second launch right now. But more than anything, like, I've been able to reach more people and just give them my knowledge,
Yep.
and just share with them. And that's been so much fun. I've had more joy in running my own business today than I did when I first started. Like, it's crazy. So I'm still in the middle of that journey, but that's the long version of it.
Well, I think what you're doing is so smart, because you're diversifying your income. So you still have the agency money, but then you have the course income that's coming in too. And with the economy the way it is and so many business owners struggling, I don't see them being as open to spending the money for an agency to take over their social media, but I do see them wanting to pay to learn so they can DIY it and kind of bootstrap their business as they learn.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how could someone commit to a 6-month social media, like just specifically social media content management package? Say it's $500 a month, right? And you're committing for 6 months. So what's that? $3,000. One, you don't know where your business is going to be in 6 months, but specifically, like, that's the price that the company I worked for was charging for 4 posts a week on one platform. Okay. So people were paying that. Thousands of businesses across the country were paying that with no analytics tracking. So how can you prove your return on investment?
Yeah.
Those were the types of conversations I had with small businesses. And I was like, instead of paying that, like, month over month, learn it. And then you're giving yourself and your team the ability to have a new skill set. It's actually going to be more powerful because it's your voice coming out, and so those conversations have been fun to have. But yeah, how in this economy, how can anyone commit to something that they can't prove a return on investment with,
Okay, so teach us the basics, like social media 101. When you get started with somebody, you're teaching them to get started. What platform would you have them start with, and what would that look like?
100% I would have them get started with Facebook. Biggest reason for Facebook is because it is the platform where, how many billion people are on there? Like, half the world's population is basically on Facebook. So that's where people are on, like, it's got the biggest number. So Facebook would be the first platform. But the second thing I would the first thing I would tell them is do you know the difference between social media content marketing and social media advertising?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a confusion around, like, I do social media and it's not helping me with my business. And I always have to ask that clarifying question of, well, are you doing posts every day? Or are you actually paying for ads that's driving people to take some type of action? Like, two different mindsets. So I then have to get down and explain real quickly, like, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, social media advertising, you're paying to play in a space that's going to put you in front of more people. That's typically where you're trying to drive people to take an action with you, whether it's a call, buy a product, whatever it is. It's very specific, targeted to a specific audience. Like, you're going to drive leads with that, or business. Okay. Over here on the content marketing side, it's more about brand awareness. It's more about creating your voice in your market, obviously, in your community, to your existing audience. It's establishing you as, an industry authority by the type of content that you share. So I teach, like, just from a very basic standpoint, you want to have like an 80-20 ratio outside of, like, a sales period. Now, if you're running, like, say your clothing boutique and you're going to do, like, a Christmas sale, right? Obviously, around that time, you're going to have more promotional posts, but generally speaking, like, an 80-20 ratio of 20% of your posts need to be like promote, promote, promote. And then the other 80% need to be more of you showing off who you are in the industry. So engaging posts, things that are going to get conversations going on your page. Educational or informative. So maybe sharing information about your product or services that people may not have known, or like how it was made or what your process is. And then I also like when people tell story, and it's not an engaging post, but they start to kind of share testimonials, and not from like I'm promoting my business standpoint, but let me have you see what other people have said about our company. So that I talk about more. When you start to do that over time, that's the thing that I think when you're doing your Facebook ads, people are now going to find your page and they're going to see, oh, you've actually been writing all of this really wonderful content. It's going to bring the quality of your ads up, if that makes sense. And I always say start with Facebook. But then from there, what platforms you go to really just depends on where your audience hangs out and what their demographics are. Like I'm 32 years old. I'm a mom. I like DIY stuff and I really like research. So I hang out a lot on Pinterest, I'm on Pinterest like a lot. And Instagram. I don't really get on Facebook a lot, if your target audience is younger, Instagram and TikTok is probably where you need to be hanging out, and so those are the types of conversations that I have. And I think that would be some of the first things that I would tell people is you've got to differentiate between ads and content marketing. And then you've got to understand where your audience is to know where do you want to show up.
How often do you need to show up?
If you're just starting out and you're not doing anything, just commit to one post a day, at least on Facebook. And then I tell people round robin it. So have Monday, even if it's something as simple as just getting the consistency down, like Monday motivation, Tuesday tip, Wednesday, just figure out something that you can do for at least a month to show yourself that you can be there consistently. And then from there, once you've got the consistency down, then let's put in some strategy behind, okay, let's look a month ahead. On Thursday of the third week of next month, what do you want to promote? So let's build up to that, but I just say at least once a week, because your audience is showing up on their social medias once a day, not once a week, once a day. But like Facebook, I think the last stat I saw is the average user is opening their app 4 to 5 times a day. So if you're only showing up one time a day and they're all showing up 4 to 5 times, they may only see you that one time if they scroll far enough. So the more frequently that you show up, the more likely they are to see your content. So
when I first learned Facebook marketing with Sandy Krakowski, it was every hour on the hour from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. That was a lot, but it also helped me build my fan page to 50,000 followers, and I had crazy engagement. I was so consistent. Like when I had my son TJ, like I remember I even had my posts scheduled and everything when I was like in labor in the hospital. Like I still had posts going out every hour on the hour, because I knew he was coming, so I was able to batch. Which, by the way, can you talk to us about batching? I know this is like one of the things.
Yeah, batching is like, oh my gosh. Okay, so the way that I explain it to someone who doesn't understand it in the marketing term, it's like, why do people meal prep? Not only are people meal prepping for the week so that they eat better, because that is important, but they're also doing it to save themselves time. Okay. So, and money, huge on the money thing. So look at batching content, specifically for social media, as a way to just make your time that you spend in your marketing efforts more efficient. Because what you can do is I teach this really quick process of take an hour to plan out plan out your month of like sales promotions that you're going to do. So reverse engineer it. So you build everything off of a promotion, put that on the calendar. So okay, I need a couple of posts before that day. So you plan all of your content, all of your events for the month. And then you put it into a scheduler. So you schedule it out and you then go and create the content. I like to create the copy first. That's just me. Some people like to create their graphic first, to each his own, but then go create your content. That maybe takes an hour to 2 hours. If you get these systems consistent, you'll actually see your time shrink down and you'll figure out how much time. Like for me, a month's worth of content for my business takes me 2.5 to 3 hours. And that's at least 2 posts a day on all of my social media platforms. And then probably 4 a day in my Facebook group. I just need to add my Pinterest stuff in there, and this thing's going to take off.
Yep.
But then you create, and then you put it into a scheduler. This is the key. I think too often people think I need to be like on my phone to then push the publish button for it to go out. And that right there, if I open my phone right now in the middle of this interview, like the first thing I'm going to do is see that first post, and then automatically our brain is trained to like go look at the next line.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be thinking, I'm going to take a moment, 5 minutes, and create this post and go publish it, and it turns into 15 or 20 minutes for
Easy.
one post a day.
Yeah.
Add that up in the week, and that's nuts.
Yep.
It's like 3 hours in a week. So when you create a quick system, the planning, creating, scheduling, you can really take all that month's worth of effort, and you can do it either 1 hour a day, and then you're done for the month. Or if you're like me, just binge batch, just like go
That's
for
what I
it.
was
Grab
about.
a cup of coffee and just go for it, because it's like like a water well. When you pump a water well, like old school, again, Kansas country girl, you pump that water well, it takes a minute for like the water to start to come up to the surface. But once the water comes to the surface, it's flowing freely. You just gotta, then it takes less effort to pump. The same effect happens when you're in that creative mode of creating content.
Yep.
Right? And because then you're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'm probably not efficient for this day, but let's move it over here. So then as you're planning, you're able to put it over there. When you're writing copy, like everything just flows when you're just you just get focused. Yep. Right?
So I think it's important to figure out what time of day you are most creative and you're in that like flow state. So like for me, mornings, like if you try to get me to create content after like 2 o'clock, especially today, since I've been up since 2:30 with this one, like it just would not happen. So like at like between 6 and 10, that's where I'm like most focused, most productive. I can get so much done.
Rachel, we're so opposite.
Really? That's so funny.
My peak time, this is going to freak you out because you're asleep. I'm asleep when it's your peak time and you're asleep during my peak time, because my peak time, and I don't do it anymore, it's 9 to 11 p.m. That's when like, I know. But it used to be, for me, it used to be like I couldn't go to sleep because I had anxiety at night. And I learned to work through the anxiety. And now what I've realized is like my brain just starts it, and instead of like me letting anxiety creep in and like start to create that in my body and in my mind, I learned to like filter it through like meditation, like certain scriptures and things. But then I noticed like through that piece, I felt like I was getting downloads of like ideas.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, I'm up till midnight because I just went off on this. So like I've had to be very good about not letting that be my peak time, because mama needs some sleep.
Yep.
But I my other time is, I would say 10 a.m. to 1. And that's when I hire my nanny or I take the girls to a sitter, and that like 3 hours in the middle of the day, 10 a.m. to 1, that's my secondary like peak creativity time. And I don't do anything other than try to create during that time, or do my live videos or trainings or whatever. I don't take calls during that time if I can't, like, except for this, because I love this. But yeah.
I love that you differentiated between like creating content time and taking calls time, because that's something that is really important. Because if you're like going back and forth between calls, content, and also like for me, I like if I wait and I'll do my calls in the morning, then I lose out on my peak creativity time. And if I try to put in the afternoon, then it's like flip flop. So I even told Michelle, I'm like, I need all my calls afternoon, like at like between 12 and 3, that's when I can do my calls, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really, because then it's like, if you can't get the water to come out of that well, what do people do? They just walk away from it, right? And they're like, man, that well's dry. We do the same things to ourselves when we're not, when the creative juices aren't flowing. It's like, well, today's not my day. And like, and then what did we lose? Like we lose. It's just, I've learned that about myself, that I have to be, I have to know when my times are, and I have to protect them for sure.
For sure. Is there a scheduling platform that you recommend so you're not posting throughout the day, or do you recommend using like the Facebook native scheduler, or what do you suggest?
I prefer right now, just depending on, like, I really try to help small businesses save as much money as possible while they're growing their revenue. Because once they're increasing their profit, then they can look at programs that are going to maybe be more high tech, but also my clientele, the people that I end up teaching a lot, they don't want like the crazy tech stuff. They just want it to be simple. So I try to give them as many low cost or free options as possible. So my favorite one to recommend right now is Facebook's Creator Studio. So it's like their native scheduler, but they created their own platform. So you can schedule out on Instagram and Facebook. You can schedule out IGTVs in there.
Is it free?
Yes. As long as you have a business page. Like inside of my social media marketing made easy course, I do a whole tutorial on how to use that, because it just came out like last year. It was in beta testing, and now I think it's out to the public. And so it's free, but it also runs analytics at the same time. Nice. So especially on your videos, like if you do video content, which is the number one form of content, by the way, there's a little tip. Number one form is like video. It will tell you right there, all within like the scheduling platform, how many people watched for 1 second, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, and then the full video. So just off of like a quick graph, you can see those things. So I recommend hands down Facebook's Creator Studio. I haven't had any issues with it. You can actually do like an Instagram, like when you're creating it on Instagram, you push a button and it'll automatically push it to Facebook if you want to, just like you can in the app. I don't necessarily recommend that for all business owners, because some of their audience is on Instagram at a different time than their Facebook. So I really encourage like figuring out when your audience is online. But I like that platform. And outside of that, I've used Buffer in the past. It's free for your first 3 social media accounts. I think that's what it was as of yesterday. So if that changes in the future, but most small businesses don't have anything more than a Facebook and Instagram and maybe something else. But I'm looking into Planoly. I keep hearing wonderful things about Planoly.
We've used Planoly for a long time.
I just keep getting people asking me about it. I'm like, well, I better learn it. So I just know, but yeah, those are my top, I would say. Facebook Creator Studio, which is free, and then Buffer.
Cool. What are some ways small businesses can humanize their marketing, so it's not just like, like a logo?
Right. This one freaks a lot of people out. I tell them, try to get in front of the camera. Like, give people an experience when they're looking at your content. Listen, I love stock photography, no doubt about it. And as a social media marketer, like it's easy for me to use like really cute, like flat lays of like desks and stuff and my stuff. But I hired somebody to take pictures of me, to take pictures of my home office, because I want people that, like, just for my business as an example, I want people to feel and see Danielle and the space that she lives in on a regular basis. Your clients, your customers, they want the same thing, especially if they're new. They want to know before they walk through your doors what it's going to be like when they come visit your store, or before you come to their home. Like my pest control guy, he's a client of mine actually, and I said, I think it would be really brilliant if you had a video done of you with some B-roll shots of like you doing like a spray inside and outside, so that when your new customers come to your Facebook page, it's scrolling in the header, it's pinned at the top of your page. They know what you look like, what your staff looks like, what your truck looks like. They can see your flow, and you're giving them an experience ahead of time. So the humanizing side of your marketing, you actually have to show up, like be in front of your audience. Don't be afraid to show who you are, what your story is. So I just say, like, take photos of in the office of yourself, like tell employee stories, like introduce your employees to people.
Do these pictures, do they have to be professional, or can you do like a selfie?
No, I mean, if you have at least an iPhone that's from the last 3 years, the camera quality is pretty good. The thing I just tell people is don't leave a lot of head space. Just try to center your object right in the middle. That's the only tip that I give people. Like, but it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I think the time that we're in, which this is like, we're July 2020, the previous 3 months is shown, like, people just want you to show up. Like,
yep.
you can't get a professional photographer to come to your small business right now because, one, COVID, it's like,
right.
People like the authenticity too. They like, I think, especially as the generation that's behind me, like I'm like older millennial, but that younger millennial group and the one that's coming behind us, the thing that they're attracted to right now is just real, raw. Like they're not They don't like the canned stuff. They like to just see it in its real action. They're going to grow up. I don't think that's going to change with them. And guess what? In 10, 15, 20 years, they're going to be your highest paying clients. So it's like, you got to start to look ahead at those kind of things. Yeah. So don't worry about it all being super, super pretty. I mean, make sure it's, decent, don't have like trash laying around, but I've seen that, by the way. I'm like, don't take a picture in the bathroom. Like, that's just probably not necessary. I've seen that, Rachel. It's so bad. But yeah. So those are some tips.
What are some trends you see that are coming up?
Oh gosh, like I said earlier, video. I think video is the biggest thing. If you're going to do video, if I can add a quick plug here, please add captions, especially if it's like Instagram story. Like, I don't have my ringer on my phone naturally because I just don't like when I hear it go off. So that means when I open up my Facebook or Instagram stories, just as an example, the sound isn't on automatically. So if it's a video, I'm like most people, and I'm not, an exception to this, but most people, if it's a video and they're not able to hear it, they're going to swipe unless it has captions. And if it has captions and it is something that catches their attention, then I might be more likely to like, all right, let me turn the volume up for just a second, or let me put my headphones in. So
how do you add those captions?
One thing that you can do is I like to use a tool called Headliner. So if you want to do like your full caption, like we're talking right now, you can upload it to a tool called Headliner. It's I think it's free for 10 videos in a month. It transcribes it and you can export it back out. But if you're not going to do word for word, like on Instagram and Facebook, it's a 15-second clip. Just give them a little summary of what you're saying in that 15 seconds. Enough of a hook to where they want to turn on the volume. And then in the next slide, what are you specifically talking about? Like, keep it a sentence to 2 sentences max, but a quick blurb of like, this is what Danielle's saying in this clip. This is what Danielle's saying in this clip. And then use little stickers. Make sure you use all the fancy tools that they have. But video is one of the biggest trends. I'm looking at TikTok right now. How do I show up as a social media marketer for small businesses on TikTok?
We're on TikTok, but
I know.
Total side note, Lizzie's our social media manager, and she's like, Rachel, we need to get you on TikTok. And I was like, I'm not dancing.
Right.
I'm like, this will be your baby. So you open up the account, you do everything. Like, I don't even know. I'm not going there.
Oh, man.
So she's taking
Delegation at its finest. My first TikTok video, I was just playing around with it, and there was a fly in my kitchen, and it was so annoying. So I like walked around with my camera and like I got myself hitting it, and I did like have you ever seen that meme where he's like, ha, got him? And I did that when I hit the fly. Like, I was like, that's my social media marketing tip for the day. Like, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure it out. That's the other thing. Here's just another tip. You taught me this. Take messy action, like just have fun with it. If you put something out on social media and it completely tanks, like, it's okay. And if you want to, you can delete it. It's not gonna hurt anything. Like, just try again tomorrow. Like, it's okay. Don't stress about it too much.
For sure. What are some ways small businesses can differentiate themselves?
Yeah, so that's a good question based on everything that we've talked about up until this point. But just show up more often than everybody else. That's the thing. Like, if you want to be known more than your competitors, then make sure that people are talking about you more. And how do you do that? You've got to be in front of them more, right? It's like, bad analogy, but I was totally into Jersey Shore. Okay, like, who did everyone talk about on Jersey Shore? Snooki, because she's crazy, right? But how many times did people talk about little Sammy? Sammy, they would only talk about her whenever her and her boyfriend would get in a fight, right? But everyone always talked about Snooki because she was just like always doing something silly to be in front of the camera, right? Your business is going to be the same way. If your competitors are showing up more than you, they're going to be somebody that, one, the algorithms are going to put them up higher. So Facebook's already going to show them favor. So you got to put yourself in a position of showing up more than them. So inside of Facebook Creator Studio, there is a competitor watch tool. So you can see how often your competitors are actually posting, what their engagement numbers are like. And so you can kind of know how much more you need to be showing up on a regular basis. I think that's a really cool tool.
That is awesome. Do you have
Mhm.
any accounts that you follow that are just doing a really good job that, not that you would copy, but you could like emulate their strategy on a certain platform?
For me, as like a social media person,
Yeah.
um, you know what? I mean, the big one that always comes to mind for me is Amy Porterfield.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, I'm not trying to like brown nose or anything, but I do love everything that you guys do at She's Making an Impact. I really do.
Thank you.
But I had to, this is not the answer you're probably anticipating. I had to stop looking at, now I learned in the beginning of my business, like what people were doing, but I found myself like right before I joined Activate, really doubting my ability to go create what I wanted to create because I
Mhm.
was looking too much at other people's businesses
Yep.
and giving myself this like, her pictures look so awesome. How am I ever gonna, she has a team of people. Like, how am I, like, how am I gonna do this? And it actually really started too much, like, it started to affect the way that I saw my own potential. So I had to stop following other social media marketers. So what I did was is I followed people that were good in SEO, people that like showed up on social media and Pinterest, people that showed up that had podcasts. Like, so I learned what worked
Mhm.
by looking at other industries specifically. So like if you are a beautician, you own a salon, and maybe you're trying to use social media to funnel more people to your business, like it's good to see what they're kind of doing, but it's not necessarily what that salon's doing that is a success. It's the mindset that they have, it's the system they have in place from like a marketing standpoint. That's the thing. But
Hmm.
I had to stop looking at other social media managers because I was comparing myself too much.
I think that's really good feedback and a good idea. I know I don't follow anyone basically in my industry. I think I follow like 180 people on Instagram, and they're pretty much all faith-based people that if I do open up the app, it's like they're gonna inspire me in some way,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yes.
not gonna be in that like comparative mode, you know?
I do. And I love that you said that because obviously, like, social media can be such a great platform, but
Hmm.
it can also be very detrimental. My mentor, Paige, one of the first things that she taught me early on in my entrepreneurial journey with her was you've got to protect your ear gates and your eye gates. You've
Hmm.
got to be very careful about what you let influence you. You may not consciously be aware that, just as an example, and I'm not bashing anybody who does this, but a girl who might be like a fitness model and she's posting on her social media page, and you're 2 months postpartum, and just seeing that picture, you don't know how that can jack with your mind if you're not in a place where you can start to maybe work towards that, right?
Hmm.
That can affect you. So like I've had to be very, very intentional about what I follow on Facebook and Instagram, because all I want to come in, all that I want to be influenced by, are things that are going to inspire me, motivate me, make me want to be better in a sense that it's uplifting, and that I know my triggers for comparison, so I just avoid them, you know.
So good. What's one
Mhm.
of the best books you've read?
The Go Giver
Ooh.
by Bob Berg. There's a series of them. That's I think his first book, but that book is really wonderful because it talks about the success in business is not based on how hard you hustle, the grind, what you take. Like, I think in like the business world, there's this perception of like, you've got to like, I almost said something kind of raunchy, but like, you got to go to the wall. Like, you got to put the wall, like all this, just like go hard in your business and take, and like, you kind of got to like hustle because there's like a glorification of the grind, right? But in the book, he talks about these 5 stratospheric laws for success, and they're all based on adding value,
Mhm.
and that by giving value, showing up and serving people, that is actually what leads to success, not just monetarily, but also the success that you see in all areas of your life. So I love that book. It was one of the first business books I ever read in 2013. Yeah.
Nice. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
So I'm stealing this from Jim Rohn, because I read this 5 years ago, and it's become part of my DNA. But to make an impact, it's just basically living a life that will help others financially, spiritually, intellectually, relationally. It's making an impact is helping people to see what's inside of them so that they can become the best versions of themselves, so that they and their sphere of influence can have the greatest impact. Because it's like the story of the little boy who's walking down the beach and he's picking up seashells, and he's just, or clams or something, and he's throwing them back into the ocean, and he's trying to save them. And there's a hobo that lives on the beach, and he's like, there's thousands of them out here, you'll never save all of them. And the little boy picks up another one and he throws it in. He's like, well, I saved that one. And he picks up another one and he said, save that one. And it's like, I can't reach the entire world just as Danielle, but if I can reach 100 people in my lifetime that I can have an impact on, they can reach 100 people, and there's just a ripple effect. So living a life that serves other people, that's what it means to me to make an impact.
I love it. Where can we connect with you?
So the best place to connect with me is going to be social media for the most part. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and that's at Danielle.bridgecd. And then another place to connect with me, I love to give, like the Go Giver teaches me, taught me to like give value. And so I created a 4-page guide, and it is 7 quick tips for all small businesses to be able to improve their social media platform. So it kind of hits all the different areas that I kind of talked about today. And that's available at socialwithdanielle.com/guide. And that's available to everybody. So
cool. Danielle, I adore you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your tips with us.
Thank you, Rachel.